Located in the south of the United States, the state of Texas is one of the most populous in the country. From the 20th century, it was no longer just an agricultural region to enter to the oil and aerospace industry as well, emerging among the richest states in the country. It was the scene of the cowboy movies that proliferated throughout the world in the 80s. This is where our interviewee John Tracy, 55, comes from. Born in Fort Worth, a Dallas area city, John tells us that he generally had a good childhood, his parents lived together, he had a good home, and a comfortable life. However, his father, for being a businessman, never had much time for him, which was rewarded by his mother. My mother always tried to make the best of her. I played baseball when I was kid and she spent hours outside the house throwing the ball to help me in my training. I have good memories of the time we spent together, he says. It was through his mother's record collection that John began to become interested in music. They had one of those gadgets that played several discs with radio function as well. His mother's collection featured the great hits of the 50s and 60s. At the time, I could spend hours listening and singing along with the songs from that collection, he says. The artist says that in his teenage he had several solitary moments. I recognized that I had a good circle of friends, but I had always been in search of my soulmate, he says. Being an artistic personality from a young age, John argues that he always felt like a square piece in a round hole compared to the most of the people. We are artistic, we are more emotional, we see life a little different from the most of the people, and we are always in search of validation through our art, emphasizes. His lonely teenage days were what led him to music. I was impassioned with the popular music of those 70s, especially the songs of the composer-singers of that era, he recalls. As soon as he started playing the guitar, the days of solitude were filled. So he spent his time learning to play his favorite songs. By this time John was 16 years old and extremely keen to learn his instrument. The songs of my idols moved me and I really wanted to play like them, he reveals. The artist says he has never had singing lessons. In the beginning John rehearsed for hours and hours. He had a teacher who taught him through the method of tablature. I do not know the musical score, he taught me the basics, I improved my style of playing on my own, he says. He began to record his favorite songs on his portable recorder, playing each song several times. I played note by note until getting as perfect as the original recording, he says. Inspired by James Taylor, he began to train the fingering more, playing the many basses released with the chords to give his melodies a fuller sound. His first guitar was bought by his parents, who also sponsored his first demo recording. They did as much as they could to help me. They were not artists, so they did not understand my artistic nature. So they were not really able to nurture what I was feeding, he reveals. Asked about the difficulties in his early career, the artist states that there were several, such as getting money to record his songs, arranging shows to play, build a fan base, make your music heard by the masses, among others. Unless you're one of the lucky few who find stardom, these are everyday hardships you're continually working to overcome, he says. His first guitar teacher was named Leigh Clark, a local teacher appointed by his friend. I liked him because he taught me the songs that were playing on the radios, he says. Through the tablature, John quickly learned what kept his interest in continuing to improve. At first his parents paid the classes, and when he began his journey through composition he started to pay the costs of workshops and conferences to develop his skills by himself. His first guitar was a Gibson Model Gospel that still holds with him. John adds that as soon as he started learning to play, he was not satisfied just playing music from other artists and wanted to learn how to make his own songs. I started by reading books about musical composition and using the songs of my idols as an example, he says. At the age of 20 he recorded his first work in an effort to show off in show business. He did a series of shows in Nashville and had one of his songs published by a publisher. Besides music, his other quest was to find her soulmate and to form a family. At the age of 22 he met the one who would become his companion. Because his desire to raise a family was greater than his desire for music, John had to work in the family business and led the music as a hobby. However, I did everything that is expected from a young professional. I grew up in the company, bought a house, had children, and settled in that lifestyle, he argues. The artist reports that working in a family business brings many opportunities, but also a lot of stress and complicated times. Then, at 45, John tells us that he woke up to the fact that he could no longer suppress his artistic nature. The business stress was reaching its limits and the unfulfilled passions were beginning to consume me, he says. I think the midlife crisis is more about you waking up and really questioning what you are doing with your life, he points out. Thus, with the support of his wife and children, in 2006, John leaves the business world to undertake once and for all his professional career with an interpreter and composer. In May of the same year, the artist released his first album titled Slow Down. The artists who inspire John are big names from the 70s like James Taylor, Jim Croce, Jackson Browne, Dan Fogelberg, Gordon Lightfoot, Cat Stevens, Don McLean, John Denvern, among others. In his musical journey, John has performed in different stages, from big to small, such as theaters, concert halls, botanical gardens, restaurants, wineries, festivals, conferences, bars, churches, etc. For a year John played at Dog Park. He says it was very funny. Dog Park is a popular neighborhood park with space for pet outings and artistic presentations. I remember that someone threw a toy for his pet and almost hit me, but we all had a lot of fun, he says. One of his favorite performances was in a concert hall where the atmosphere provided more intimacy with the audience. The closest contact with the audience gives you the chance to truly share the heart and soul of your art, he adds. On the financial issue, John argues that by doing free concerts sometimes it becomes difficult to pay the bills. Something must also be done for the craft, because it demands time and energy. So I try to get presentations to generate revenue. John performs about 12 times per month. The artist has been passionate about the stages since the beginning. There's nothing like being in front of the public and sharing your stories and life with them, he says. The artist reveals that he loves the process of making music. However, the connection of the audience at the moment of the performance is what really gives him a sense of fulfillment. Nowadays, this is what gives me the best of the pleasures, he emphasizes. His source of inspiration comes from his idols mentioned here. I love finding my own story in their songs and how their lyrics help me find ways in turbulent times, and I want to do the same for other people through my music, he says. John's lyrics speak of love and life experiences. I like to say, I write real music for real life, he argues. Through his music, the nuances of everyday life are retranslated. The artist comments that many of his fans have already revealed that they met themselves through his songs, finding courage by knowing that they are not alone in their journey, and they found peace and inspiration through his themes. His first song was the song called Casey, written in 1981, a love story about a girl who broke his heart. The artist comments that his creation process is unconventional. I'm not the guy who sits down and writes a song every day. I have to be inspired, having something I really want to tell, he says. His compositions are often transparent and introspective, sharing his own experiences. John often begins by doing the melody, joining the sonorities in his guitar and building new melodic themes. When he finds something that has a good fit, he starts to think of a theme that fits the context. I work hard to write a lyric that matches each note. For me, it is a painstaking but at the same time a stimulating process. There's nothing like the feeling of finishing a song, he emphasizes. His latest work is the album Happy Ever After and his Christmas album Magical Memories, a John Tracy Christmas, mixed and mastered by Kevin McNulty from the Phonic Mastering Studio. McNulty really understands the nature of my art and makes my songs brighten up, he says. John's label is Sound Cafe Records. Asked about the difficulties in the musical career, the artist reveals that for unknown artists the problem is in the music industry, and he adds that the same questions always arise. how to take his music to the masses, how to create a fan base, how to receive money by his performances, and how to live full-time in the music business. However, John takes advantage of the modernity of information and communication technologies to spread his music. We all know that the changes in technology have opened incredible opportunities for artists, especially the independent. Without a record company, we have the ability to record our own music and having them on the world stage through social networking and online presence, he says. Despite the technological facilities, the artist considers that it is not an easy task to earn a living through art. He points out that there is a lot of music in the network and that the process of musical production must be continuous and qualified to keep fans engaged. What's happening today is that you have to build a relationship with your fans on the web. It's a rewarding job, but it's also a hard work to devote several hours every day to keep that relationship going, he adds. The artist believes that the fact that people are consuming music differently is also a major obstacle for artists. People tend to use streaming sites more than buying CDs, and these sites pay a very little money to artists, prompting them to look for other ways to be gratified by their work, he says. Even with the success he has had, John still faces the struggle and says that it compels him to become better at marketing, entrepreneurship, and to keep himself constantly at the top of the game as a musician and performer. Asked about why to work with music, the artist emphasizes that he was born with this, born to be creative. Music is the vehicle that I use to express my creativity. I feel in essence that this is my reason for being, he points out. For John, music is his source of life. As a kid, the music helped him to keep his sanity through the days of solitude. When he learned to play and create his songs, music became a creative form of liberation. Writing and performing my own music has also been healing and a way to navigate through the struggles of life and joys. Besides my family and my faith in Lord, music means the definition of who I am, he emphasizes. With part of the resources obtained by music, John collaborates with charitable organizations such as Donate Life America, an institution that works to increase the registration number of organ donors in the United States, and Young Life, an international ministry that works to create positive action in the lives of children in the community. My schedule does not allow me personally to participate in the action of these institutions, but it is a blessing to be able to help financially, he says. About the complexity of the world, John believes that the biggest issue in our world is the lack of respect among the persons. We have forgotten how to treat each other with dignity and courtesy. I believe that despite the great benefits of social networks, in most cases the popularity of these virtual spaces makes up this problem, he argues. For the artist, there has been forgetfulness about how to relate to other people in person, and spending of time in the virtual world, rather than in the real world. The artist adds that, in addition, there are a number of other issues with radicalism and political turmoil. For John, each person is responsible for its own corner of the world, and has to seek for being a positive example and source of light for its own community. If we all work to make our own communities better places to live, then the effect would be global, he emphasizes. Regarding his expectations of the world, the artist says that if it were not for his faith in God, everything would be very frightening for a series of factors that cannot be enumerated. I fundamentally believe that God is in control and that He will be with me every step of the way in my journey. When the future is uncertain, I keep my hopes in Him. He always accompanies me and I have noticed His hands working several times. It is a comfort to know that I can count on Him even if the path is not clear, he points out. To know more about John Tracy, access johntracymusic.com. You can find more indie artists' histories on zelflorizel.blogspot.com.br. By Zel Florizel.